aspects of his case that may sound eerily familiar to my next guest. He was a prosecutor in the O.J. Simpson case, a case that, of course, ended in acquittal 18 years ago. Christopher Darden joins me now exclusively. Christopher, you heard the debate there. It's impossible to talk about this case without it turning into a race debate. You had exactly the same thing in the O.J. case.
True.
What is your take on the Zimmerman, Trayvon court action that we're seeing?
Well, I think it's a race case without question. It was made a race case prior to the case being filed. And the defense played the race card just the other day when they introduced a statement supposedly made by Trayvon where he referred to Zimmerman as a cracker. And so race is the case.
How do you see it playing out? I mean, obviously Florida has a particular set of laws which are pretty supportive of what George Zimmerman did if you believe his version of events. Well,
how do I see it playing out?
Yeah.
Well, I think this is a case for the defense to lose. I think the prosecution has an uphill battle. I'm not sure that I would have filed this case had I been the prosecutor, whether there was political pressure to do so or not. I mean, we do have laws, we do have rules, and the right to self-defense is a law that has existed in this country since the beginning.
But we only actually have George Zimmerman's word for it,
that
he was truly acting in self-defense.
True, and that's the problem. We only have George Zimmerman's word for it.
Right, we can't hear from Trayvon Martin, and the incontrovertible evidence, him getting out of the vehicle, ignoring the advice he's been given on the phone by the police to not follow him, all that stuff we know is true, does not lend itself to a guy who's trying to avoid trouble.
But it doesn't lend itself to murder either. I mean, the problem here is, as you say, the only person that really knows what happened, who can really speak to what happened and speak the truth, one would hope, is Zimmerman, who has every reason not to be truthful, not to be honest. And I think that as the prosecution picks away at his stories and his prior statements, I think you see that he has not been entirely honest in his description of what occurred. But all the defense has to do is raise a reasonable doubt. The prosecution, on the other hand, has the burden of proof. They have to prove murder beyond a reasonable doubt.
And have you seen anything evidentially which proves that to your satisfaction?
That proves murder?
Yeah.
No, not yet.
What about manslaughter? What about the possibility that some people have raised that they could convict but on a lesser charge?
Well, I think if a jury concluded that his so-called belief in the need to use deadly force was unreasonable, then, yeah, so you get to manslaughter, a compromise verdict. And that's what it would be, a jury compromising. You know, the prosecution has thrown down the gauntlet. They filed murder. You know, they want murder. And I don't know that a jury would necessarily come back with manslaughter.
Well, let's talk about the jury. In your case, you had a jury that was predominantly female and predominantly black. Here you have a jury which is predominantly female but predominantly white.
Yes.
How much of an impact will that have potentially? As we saw in the O.J. case, or many people believe there was a miscarriage of justice there, could we see a similar situation here?
Well, you know, it's hard to say, and I've actually given some thought to that issue, the jury makeup in this case, and why the lawyers chose these particular jurors. And it's hard to say. You know, to sit in the courtroom and be a lawyer in that trial, and even though you're not speaking to the jurors directly, to have an interaction, to see them, how they interact with others, you get a sense of who they are and what their views are and how they react to the evidence. We can't really see that. I can't really see that. So I'm just not sure. I mean, why these 6 individuals as opposed to some others? You know, a lot of people will say if the case is lost by the prosecution that, you know, the racial makeup of the jury.
I mean, one key aspect also could be that a lot of people in Florida have guns. I think at least 4 members of the 6-woman jury have family members who own guns.
Sure.
And they may believe that if you own one, you have a right to defend yourself in that situation.
Well, having a family member who owns a gun is a lot different from owning a gun oneself.